Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Yoruus speaking and welcome to the summer video for multiplayer game number 108. As usual, spoiler alert, if you do not want to know how the game went, stop watching right now and go to the first position of the playlist where the actual game starts. But if you do want to know how the game went, or you have already watched the game and want to hear me theorycraft a little bit and summarize the game, I invite you to watch this video. So, you have been warned, let's go. So, this game was played on 27th December. I've gotten this game NQ Lucky Strike, Cleft or Ascar, Tony the Bomb, and NQ Shumi 16. Shumi got Ethiopia, Tony rolled Indonesia, Ascar Assyria, Cleft or Babylon, and Lucky Strike rolled Byzantine, and I've got myself Portuguese. Now, as you can probably imagine, I started here. Now, this is sort of interesting starting location, so to say. Why this is interesting starting location? Because it looks like, oh wow, desert, right? Like, oh wow, desert. Oh wow, salt. Okay, that's everything is cool, everything is fine, but this salt is on desert. This salt is on desert. There's also like two tiles, like flat desert. So if you look at this spot, the first thing that it comes into your mind is like Petra. And the second thing in your mind is like, okay, Petra, but it's not only like it would be cool to get Petra. This spot demands a Petra. Alright? That's the problem with the start. Now, this spot demands a Petra. Without a Petra, this is a mediocre starting location, basically. It doesn't have really that much because this salt is normal. Oasis is not really that great. Flat plains, no hammers. Yeah, there's a couple of hills that you can put farm on. But it's just like, without a Petra, it's simply mediocre at best. There's like literally, there's one thing that you gotta know. Lucky Strike proposed that we play without strategic balance, but also we play without nukes. So without strategic balance, basically I'm not certain I will get iron, and there's like 100% chance that I will not get horses. So any like strategy based on going iron or horses is not really viable, because you cannot count on that they will have those tiles in there for extra hammers. So basically without 100% iron or horses, this spot is basically mediocre at best. It really screams like, I need a Petra or you will fail this game. And there's basically what came into my mind as well in this game, and I was like, I need to get a Petra in this city, and I need it very, very badly. So what's the best way to ensure that you will get a Petra? Of course, Great Library Rush. Great Library Rush gives you a huge chance to get Petra really, really quickly. Basically, it's the fastest way to get a Petra. There's like almost no fastest way, but it's also kind of risky because it demands it demands from the other players that they will not try to rush Petra. And if they do rush Petra, it's a gamble. Do they have better lands than you or not? It's a huge gamble, basically. But in this instance, I was on turn 0. You can see I'm making a worker. So on turn 0, I'm like, I need to go for Petra. So there was no time for scouts. There was no time for shrines. The only two things that I can build in this instant is worker, granary, Great Lib, and then I can think about stuff. Those three things I need to get ASAP, basically, and there's no other way around it. If I don't get it, I'm basically, with this land, failed Petra rush would mean probably GG, because no settlers, no nothing, just some extra gold and a huge investment to actually do it, so recovery from that will be quite hard. So I decided to gamble and go for Great Life into Petra. And thankfully it happened. I got Great Life. So one step was successful. I got Great Life and got mathematics from it with the free tech. So that's really great. Now that was kind of tricky, but there was like two things that made me believe that I have a chance. Well, the first thing is Shumi with his Ethiopian start. He took like 3 turns to get his initial settler planted. Though at the same turn he also met Fate City State and he got like a desert pantheon, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's got a Petra capital. And yes, he had a Petra capital, but because he planted 3 turns later, that kind of gave me a tiny little bit of confidence that I can get Great Life before him. If I get Great Life before him, then I'm like guaranteed to have a Petra, to build up a Petra. So getting Great Life was the first initial step that I needed to take, and that almost guarantees you to get a fair chance to get a Petra. So as you can see, I got only a spearman and I finally got a scout. Now you could argue, like people on Twitch were saying, okay, go for Hanging Gardens right now, and I was like, no. No Hanging Gardens though. I could probably take it, but with Hanging Gardens there's also a risk because you cannot really notice. If you haven't met people, you cannot really notice if somebody is going for Hanging Gardens with skipping libraries, right? So I was not really sure that I can actually get a Hanging Gardens, and that risk was like too much to ask from me, because I need a second city definitely to at least use the 2 cargo ships or use like a Petra caravan, basically start the food rolling in, and I need an NC finally, but like OCC NC is not the best way for me to do it. I prefer to get a second city. And on top of that, I've met Askarel, so Assyria is quite close to me. Now that puts me in a slight disadvantage, you know, like the siege tower. So again, it's a huge gamble because like if Assyria would commit to attacking me, I would be in a deep trouble basically. So I tried to talk him out of it. It wasn't looking like that great. It wasn't looking that great initially, but I think he like decided that it wouldn't be the best idea to try to war versus me before I get Petra. That wouldn't gain him too much, but then again he would have a Petra cap. If I would get Petra, that capital would be amazing, and if he wouldn't prepare to like before to take my capital before I get Petra, then it would be quite hard because I could pump out units quite nice, and my capital is on a hill as well, so that would give me a fair chance to defend myself. But it seemed like he did not plan to actually attack me, maybe because he was and bordering also with Babylon, and you know, like Cleftor playing Babylon. I'm like, come on, Cleftor plus Babylon means like, yeah, exactly. So the next stop for me is Petra, but taking the little bit safer way, which means getting a couple of scouts. I wanted a watermill, and I wanted a settler to plant another city, so I can get that city up to speed while my capital will be building Petra. And thankfully, it worked out quite nicely. I was able to get a Petra on turn 48, so it's not like a super fast win, but fast Petra, but that was amazingly huge for me, and we can see my capital right in here. So Petra gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 extra food and 16 extra hammers. Or you could even call in here 16, 17. 17 extra food and 17 extra hammers. That's like mind-blowing. That's 4 cargo ships basically. If you could compare that to something, that's like 2 food cargo ships and 2 hammer cargo ships into my city. Plus, on top of that, a 5th cargo ship because I have a caravan, extra caravan from Petra. So this capital with a Petra is just mind-blowing. So I figure out right now that what I need to do is basically play safe. Because there's like, the map would be seem that I'm on the edge of the map, like in a corner of the map, and Shumi is like on the other corner of the map, and like between me and Shumi there's Tony with Indonesia, and between me and Kleftor, the next basically well, the first threat in this game, there's Syria. So Kleftor would need to go through Assyria to get me, and Shumi would need to get kill Tony to get to me in the early game or mid game or like the early late game. So I felt like with this successful Petra, now it's just time to like only protect myself from Assyria if he would like decide to attack me anyways, but get that done and like play it safe. I had 2 more spots for cities, so I decided to get my 2 settlers up, send them into the right positions, get NC in my capital, basically library in my second city, NC in my capital, then plant those 2 cities, and then just slowly echo up, focusing like only on economy and science, but at the same time trying to keep a defensive army so nobody would like decide to actually attack me. The only true person who could attack me in the mid or like now is Assyria, so I wanted to protect myself from him. So here we are at turn 100, since I like to compare turn 100 from different games just for comparison, and this is not like the super science game in here. It doesn't look that great. Now the downside of my Petra rush was the lack of a shrine and lack of a pantheon, and eventually the lack of religion. Now people was talking on Twitch that I should build up shrines and temples, which I was quite reluctant to build, and I gotta say at this point right now that was a huge mistake. I should have invested in shrine and temples, though I didn't have a religion. I only had like my natural wonder, but I didn't really focus on religion, and that was a huge mistake on my part. Religion never got in here, any good religion at least. Like in the late game, Tony finally fought off Shumi's religion, who's like totally dominant. He had enormous amounts of cash. So Tony fought that religion later on in the game, and I got Tony's religion. But the point is, I did not invest in fate generating buildings, and that was a huge mistake, because at the late game you kind of need that fate to buy something, have some flexibility to buy an engineer or a scientist, if you actually manage to fulfill rationalism. And I did not invest that, and that was a mistake. There was a mistake in this game, but we're gonna talk about it later on. But this is my empire. Now capital has a huge potential. I've got 3 coastal cities, so that's 2 cargo ships with food to my capital, and from my capital the other cities I mostly send out cargo production, and then there's like feeding Braga with caravans, 1 or 2 caravans, I think 1, and I definitely send some caravans for money as well. So I try to fight off city-states a little bit, well, fight for city-states a little bit, and basically that what I was focusing on. I was not like leading, I was leading hammers. Well, actually I was leading like a lot of demographics, but not points and not science really. So I was trying to look a little bit weaker than I really am, but it was not really working out that well because I didn't want to like slow me down too much. And in comparison to other players, my hammers in this game were amazingly good. Thankfully, I did not have a religion. I did not have a religion, so basically my points are like below Shumi. I don't think that with those players that actually really matters, but looking at the scoreboard, it doesn't really say that much. Shumi's score comes from religion mostly, and my score comes for sheer like a pure economic power, like food, hammers, population, all that stuff. Now I was really trying to fight off for city-states and trying to have at least a little bit income in comparison to Shumi, who's like rocking crazy with gold in this game. Kleftor has, as usual, crazy science, but except that, nothing really happened until the late game. And you could say like, oh, why did nothing basically happen? Well, it's a tiny little bit strange situation in here. Now, let's look at the minimap basically. So you've got Lucky Strike in here. Now, Lucky Strike likes to go culture. Like, he really likes to go culture, and everybody of those players know that, so they don't really expect any tricks for him, any rushes, any stuff like that. If they see him go culture and like lag behind in science for some reason, because Lucky like lags behind with science when he goes culture focus, and they saw this happen. The Lucky Strike was like, he went for piety, and he went for, because he got Byzantine, so he got 3 faith, bought buildings, and he got a Reformation belief for extra tourism for that. He tried to take this route, which basically meant he had a very small capital. His science was bad, hammer was bad, so nobody really was treating him serious in this game, like a serious threat. So he's just doing his stuff in that corner of the galaxy basically. Now, because the map looks a little bit like strange, we've got Shumi in here. So in the south you've got city states and Lucky Strike, so there's no threat for Shumi from the south. On the east side he's got Tony, and Tony was like keeping 0 army basically. He was like echoing up. He went like a glass cannon basically. He went like a glass cannon, though he was really hiding his true like science and potential, but he went like total glass cannon. And Shumi was trying to like compensate on his very strong religion, but he didn't really want to attack Tony because he felt like he can take Tony whenever he wants in the late game. The first priority for him is Kleftor playing Babylon with his extra science and usually extra food. Kleftor was on 4 cities and had very nice food and tremendously good science for Shumi. Like, the first target is Kleftor, and to reach there by land is quite hard. You would need to take city-states, so Kleftor would like see that coming from like a lot of turns before it would happen. So usually Shumi likes to go with stealth bombers and XCOM, so he was aiming for stealth bombers and XCOM to take out Kleftor. Now, Tony was like glass cannoning all the time, so no real threat for Shumi. He was just focusing on science, trying to go for those stealth bombers. Assyria fell back a little bit with science, starting from like industrial era. I don't know what happened there, but from that point he was like lagging behind with science as well. And there's me, who have no real reason to try to attack anybody before the late era, or like go to Shumi to attack him. There's no reason to do so. So though I probably did not think about it in like planned it while I was playing the game, but looking like at this right now, I definitely feel like that wouldn't be even smart that I should go for Shumi, because Shumi is like, he sees Kleftor on Babylon. He knows like, we need to get to Kleftor, because if we won't attack him or do something to him, he can go to space quite easily. And that's absolutely true. So looking at this from time perspective, I have no real reason to be threatened by Shumi before Kleftor would be dead. and that actually did happen. So let's skip like the industrial era when finally something started to happen. Okay, I think this is a good point to start talking about what basically started to happen in here. So, because this is like a no nuke game, there's no like nuke threat. It's like it's a no nuke threat, so you are free to like fortify your lands quite nicely. So the real way to attack somebody is stealth XCOM. There's no need to go for bomb shelters, there's no need to do that, so you can freely go to stealth bombers and XCOMs. And that's basically what happened. I went for bombers, and I took away Assyria. Well, I went for bombers and rocket artillery. I had a huge hammer lead on him, so that was quite easy fight. I lost maybe 2 or 3 units. He didn't really put a big fight in here, so I took Assyria's land. In the meantime, Shumi was trying to take out Kleftor. Now, probably he hoped that he would kill him quite fast, but Kleftor did put up some fight, so it took Shumi quite some amount of turns to actually take Kleftor out. What that basically means is that gives me time. That's a perfect situation that gives me time. Lucky Strike is still doing his cultural stuff. Tony is still like glass cannoning, though like he's got the strongest military next to him, but he's still glass cannoning, like not trying to put attention on himself. And Kleftor is trying to survive, though that actually helps me if he fights back. He did lose the capital, but he still fought back, so that was quite nice of him. Because that gave actually me more time to prepare defenses for Shumi to get there. So that was quite working nicely for me. It's still like it's quite slow win. As I said, my science was not that great in this game. I was not playing Babylon, and I was like lagging behind a little bit, especially behind Kleftor, and I did my fair share of mistakes. Basically, I did not invest enough in faith, and I generated 1 great engineer too much and 1 great merchant too much, which slowed down 2 of my great scientists. And it turned out in the end that those was huge mistakes. I mean, like that's like I think I messed up at least 3 great scientists for the late game to have a faster winning time. So I did my theoretically they looked like small mistakes, but in the end, about the finishing time, that cost 3 scientists. That's probably like 10 or 15 turns. I could have probably finished this game like 10 or 15 turns earlier. But let's not spoil too much. Let's get to the next screenshot, and I will talk about the like totally late game. Okay, here we are at the last screenshot. Basically, you can see I've managed to get a great a victory, a science victory on turn 194. Yeah, the science looks good at the end game, but I've got a Syria city, so it's not really like that great. And turn 194, it's not like the super fast victory, and this is no nuke scenario. So in this scenario, the map was basically. The map was very beneficial for me, the geopolitical situation. As I said, I made my fair share of mistakes, and I should have like finished this game in like turn 199, but because I invested too much in a lot into Kleftor defense, I was trying to fight off Shumi, which was quite beneficial for me. Kleftor decided to give me his last scientist, so that kind of compensated for one of my mistakes. But I did make my fair share of mistakes, so let's say this is turn 194. I could have finished like 10 turns earlier, no problem, if I didn't make mistakes. And my mistake was, first of all, I did not invest enough in faith, so I was not able to buy great scientist. as as I had to, and I generated an engineer and a merchant without any good reason. So there's at least 2 great scientists that I failed to use properly, and it was a huge deal because I had the cash at the late game, I had the defense, I had the production, but I did miss science, and I did miss science because I made a merchant and an engineer that slowed down 2 of my great scientists by quite a bit, and I did not invest enough in fate to actually buy another great scientist. So taking into account like the great scientists I got from Cleftor, so we canceled my 1 mistake, but the 2 other mistakes was just unforgivable. Basically, there was a huge mistakes in the late game, but nobody really did compete with me. I'm like, Tony said that he could win in like 10 turns at least. So I still, even if Cleftor would not give me the scientist, I would still win most probably. Nobody really did threaten me, though Tony did make a fair share of mistakes for himself as well. Though if he would be like close into winning or in a position to win, he went freedom, he had all the techs, but he had to hard build all the parts. He couldn't like buy the parts instantly. So if he would go like earlier for Apollo program or show that he has the science or the potential, probably Shumi and me, I did had a nice amount of stealth bombers as well, and quite a lot of army, so probably Tony would eventually submit to either Ethiopia or me. I don't think he could have fought with defenses. He went totally glass cannon. So in the end, that worked well, though as I said, I did my fair share of mistakes that I could have avoided. But as I said, the geopolitical situation, the map, was very, very beneficial for me, and basically because Cleftor was playing Babylon, it was like everything worked almost perfectly. And the game was quite forgiving for my mistakes, because first of all, I went all in into Petra. I did get it, so there was huge, as I said, there was like Petra in this capital was equal to like 5 cargo ships in the late game. 5 cargo ships. That's huge. That's huge. 2 cargo ships with food, 2 cargo ships with hammers, and 1 extra cargo ship with whatever I want. So that's huge. There was a really, really nice Petra capital, and that worked quite nicely. Now I was bordering theoretically Tony, who is glass cannoning. That's working great. We had Cleftor, who was closer to Shumi than me, who was playing Babylon. So as soon as Cleftor gets Babylon, he's like having a text printed on his forehead like, "You gotta kill Cleftor." It's simple as that. Cleftor with Babylon is like amazingly good, and you gotta put him or slow him down. And that was like in Shumi's mind, I gotta deal with Cleftor first, then I can worry about Yoruus, because like the first pretender to win in this game is like Cleftor. Then it's Cleftor, and Cleftor, right? And after that, it's like him or me or anybody else in this game. So that was very beneficial for me. And Assyria didn't really... He was doing okay until some point, and then his late game was not really that great, so he fell to me quite nicely, quite easily. And Lucky Strike was doing his culture thingy that didn't really work that well in this particular game. So as I said, the geopolitical situation was very, very beneficial for me, so that was kind of cool and very helpful, and also allowed me to still achieve the win, though I did make my mistakes anyway in this game. So that was quite nice. So what else? I guess that's it. So if you haven't watched the game, I invite you to watch the game. The first position of the playlist, the link is in here somewhere. So I invite you to watch the game, and yeah, basically that's it. So thank you very much for the game, everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Best wishes. Yoruus out.